Today's episode is brought to you by the premium content subscribers on the Golf Intervention Substack. And we would, of course, like to thank all of our listeners for tuning in. You make it all worthwhile. If you would like to support the show or sign up for our free newsletter, you can do that at thegolfintervention.substack.com or follow the link in the show notes.
You know, Rob Fails, today the Masters started. I taught all day because people are excited about golf. It's that time of year. The grass is green in Central Virginia. We're back on recording the Golf Intervention podcast after a slight hiatus of busy life, but we're back. And we're full throttle ahead because it is now golf season in Central Virginia, and we are excited about your golf improvement. So today on the Golf Intervention podcast, we're going to cover a few topics. Catch up with Rob and I, see what we're up to. I know a lot of you are curious about how Rob's fantasy dynasty draft went a couple weeks ago. So we'll get an update on that later, for sure. That we will definitely get a little update on that later.
Yep.
But what we're going to cover today is this question that I want you to ask yourself. So this is going to be an interactive episode. Rob and I are going to challenge you today to just look introspectively a little bit and think about this question. How bad do you want it? How bad do you want it? And by it, I mean golf superstardom for yourself, whatever that means. Goal accomplishment, satisfaction, playing better. How bad do you want it? And what are you willing to do or not do to get yourself to play better golf? Today on the Golf Intervention podcast. Welcome in, co-host Rob Fails.
Welcome.
How's life been in Charlottesville, Virginia these days? Been busy?
It's been busy. We've had some spells of summer and some spells of winter in the last couple of weeks, so it's been a little bit of a shock to the system here and there. But no, we're having a good time, and like you said, golfers are fired up.
Central Virginia springs can be a little bit of like experiencing a bunch of seasons all in one day. It can be up and down, but it was a very cold winter here. But about a month ago, it was sort of like the sun came out, but it's a little bit cold this week. The grass is green a little earlier this year than normal, that Bermuda grass coming out of dormancy.
Yep.
And people are excited, and I've been exceptionally busy with lessons, which is great. And one of the things that I've been communicating. Yeah, true. But what's been getting me excited, because I feel like, I've been doing this a long time. I'm a lot older than you, and I've been at this a long time. But every hour or half hour is it's like a new experience that you're in, right? You're on this journey with a lot of, I literally teach hundreds of people golf every year, hundreds.
Yep.
So every time they come in the room, it's a new experience. And we've talked about it on the show before. I love teaching in the off season, because I think in the off season, people are very focused on, what do I need to do? Not just because I've been playing bad the last couple of weeks, I came to see you for a lesson, but what do I need to do to improve for next season? So they're not really worried about their scores in the winter that much, and playing that much, and they just want to improve. And we have great facilities. You have great facilities. I have great facilities for winter instruction.
Yeah, we're both very fortunate.
And so, very fortunate. We've added TrackMan range at the Country Club of Virginia too. So we talk about being spoiled. TrackMan range is so cool.
Yeah.
But we're just getting going. I'm excited to see what we can do with our students with TrackMan range. But the fun thing is, in the winter, we're really focused on long-term development. It feels like we're more focused on long-term development. Whereas in the season, it's kind of like, hey, I played a couple times last week and I couldn't hit my driver. Right. So those lessons end up being a little more short-term, fix-me type lessons, which are fine too. I like it all. But it's really fun to sit down with somebody and talk about the process. Like, how do I improve at this game? What are we currently working on? Are we working on your swing? Are we working on your skills?
Yeah.
Are we working on scoring better? What are we working on? And it's been really good. I've had some students tell me things recently, like record-breaking scores, which is so cool to hear, because measuring success in golf is pretty easy. I shot a better score. it gets pretty straightforward, right?
Yep.
I always wondered when my kids played soccer, like, how do they know who the good players are when no one ever scores?
Need some
It's like
serious
1-0,
analytics.
like, huh? Yeah, how do you know who's good, right? But or who's the best offensive lineman? It's hard to tell. But in golf, it's like it's you in the golf course and you shoot scores and we track it and we have metrics and all this stuff. But I had one that I was sharing with you a little bit. This guy's played golf his whole life. He's in his 70s. And truth be told, for probably 10 years, he's been coming to see me for more of those fix me lessons a few times a year. Like,
Yep.
hey, I can't hit my driver, slicing. Okay. I asked him the other day after he signed up for 6 lessons and he said, I want to get better this winter. I want to train, get better. I want to do whatever I need to take equipment, working out, swing, skill, whatever. And after the 5th lesson, he was hitting it so much better. I mean, it was 40 yards longer with his driver, 40 yards longer with his driver. We got him a hybrid that he could hit approach shots with better, all this stuff. And I said to him, what's your record score of all time? And he said 88. And I said, you're going to average under 88 this year. Average under your record score of your life this year.
Yeah.
And he shot 38 on his first 9.
Yeah, that's pretty insane.
The other day. 38 for someone whose record score of all time was 88. Why? We went through the process that you and I have talked about on this show so many times. We got into the heart of the matter and we said, what are we lacking to play better in your skill set? What are we lacking? And is your equipment lacking? Is your access to skill lacking? Does your swing need to change? And a little bit of all that had to happen. Okay. And all of a sudden he's hitting better shots. And we've never even talked about scoring. And he's scoring better. So super cool. And I've had several of those stories this winter with folks that have come and done a series of lessons to improve in the winter. It's just really, really fun to see. And I'm fired up about it. And carrying that into Masters Week is so exciting.
Yes.
I didn't get to watch much of it today because I just got
neither did I.
A little bit, but
I just saw the leaderboard.
So what's been happening on your lesson tee out there in Charlottesville, Robbie? We seen anything fun out there? Any big concepts are really clicking with people these days?
Yeah, I think as I try to reflect about it, I was actually talking to Mark Grace not too long ago on the phone, and it's just interesting.
Mark Grace, friend of the pod.
Yes. And I was just commenting on how they're starting to look a little bit more similar than different. The variability is a little bit more in the skill and kind of what skill we're working on and how are we working on it, I think is where the variability is. But working through domino number 1, which is acceptance, being on time and on task. I think there's so many lessons where just knocking over that first domino cleans up so many things down the chain that you almost don't need to even go anywhere else a lot of times. I had a really good one earlier this week where one of my clients went on a golf trip to Baker's Bay, and he's a casual golfer. He just hits balls on the range. Honestly, he comes to see me because he wants to hit draws. He just likes to see the ball draw. He wants to see it go right to left. He's like, I just have the most fun when I see the ball do that. And that's all I want you to tell me, or all I want you to help me do. And I was like, okay, let's do it. I'm not in the business of telling you what goals you should or shouldn't have, right? If a draw helps you have fun, then I'll help you hit a draw. And
that's what it's all about.
And he went on the golf trip, and I don't care who you are, the score still matters. Like, people still have an importance of score. And so he definitely experienced a little bit of anxiety on the golf course based off of his feedback. He said that my swing started getting really fast. It got really short. I started hitting these wild fades, and then I started just aiming 50 yards left and just trying to bunt my driver out there. I stopped hitting driver. I started hitting 7 irons, and he's like, it got to be this very, very aversive experience where he's like, I was 7 holes left. I was like, how many holes? Like, how many more holes do I have to endure this for? Right. And so it was a very, very kind of dark and stormy place to be. But I just asked him, I was like, okay, well, what did you regret more? Did you regret the shots not going the way you want, or do you regret how you went about it? And he, like, without a moment's delay, he's like, oh, I regretted like how I went about it. Like, I just started playing scared. I started trying to control this. I started, and we just had a really good conversation about like, hey, like, you have two types of regret. You have type 1, which is you gave it your all. You did it exactly the way you wanted to do it, and the outcome just didn't work out. And then type 2 is you allowed something that already happened or hasn't happened yet to change the way you were doing it. So you actually didn't do it the way you wanted to do it in the first place, right? And so he was like, oh,
Yeah.
it was all type 2 regret. It's like the entire time. It's like, okay, so what can we do to help sidestep this in the future? It's like, well, I was like, I just really think if I can just, before I go out, just like find that like rhythm or find that freedom that we've talked about first. So it's like, okay, great. Then let's do that. Let's get the club swinging back and forth the way that you want to swing it. And then whenever you're ready, you're just going to walk that swing into a golf ball. And first few, the skills definitely didn't line up, right? Bottom swing was higher, lower, further forward, further back. But we just kept with it. And he probably hit 15 to 20 balls, like not even on the face, like all over. But then I asked him, like, how did that, like, were you happy with how the general swing felt? He was like, oh my gosh, like that felt so much better. Like it wasn't hurting. He's like, literally my swing started hurting me halfway through the round because I was like so tight. It's like, it feels faster. It feels like I could do it the entire round and not get tired. I'm like, okay, great. It's like, so let's keep that the same. Let's not change that. And let's just explore where you could get the bottom of that swing rhythm in space, higher, lower, further forward, further back. So we did some differential training. Turns out the bottom of his golf swing was about half an inch further forward than he thought it was, right? So he's hitting everything off the heel. He either didn't recognize it or just didn't have the confidence to try to change it. So we just gave him an intent. It was like, okay, I want you to swing this thing as freely as you possibly can. Just get the bottom of the golf swing about a half inch closer to you than what you think is correct. So you're going to try to make an error, quote unquote, in the opposite direction of your tendency. Flush rocket, flush rocket, flush rocket, flush rocket. And he just looked at me. He was like, I fixed the wrong thing. I was like, yep. You were trying to fix you were trying to solve a skill problem. Well, first off, you weren't willing to accept those outcomes. First off, that was really the big issue, number one. And then an unwillingness to accept anything that could happen caused you to tighten up, try to control this thing, and you started changing your general swing as opposed to just changing the thing that's causing the ball to do what it's doing. And so I think he now understands that next time that happens, he's going to push the right button. He's going to push a much better button, right? He's going to flip a much better switch in order to try to get that performance going in the right direction. And it's not just to get the performance going in the right direction, but our feedback is like, okay, regardless of the outcome, regardless of what you shoot, like, can you sign your name to the scorecard? Can you finish the round saying, okay, I gave it what I got, right? I sent it. I gave it a chance. I did everything that I wanted to do the way I wanted to do it. It just didn't work out today, right? And that's going to be so much more fun for him. And even though like he might not shoot the number he wants, but he's going to have a heck of a lot more fun playing these awesome golf courses than he will just steering it around the park, right?
Yeah. That's coaching. Right? See, and for a long time in golf instruction, I think it was all swing. It was all swing instruction. Like if you went for a lesson, you were getting swing instruction, driver instruction, iron instruction, short game instruction. It was just, that's what it was. I teach the swing. You came to me to learn the swing, right? And what you just went through was an encapsulation of coaching, right? Like it was, okay, let's set the table for success. Let's find out what's going to drive you. Let's find out what's going to make you better. We all know this from being students in our lives and playing multiple sports. Those coaches that influence us, or those teachers that influence us, they understood who we were, and they understood what was going on with us and what they could draw out of us to play our best. And what you did there, this is what instruction is all about. It's about drawing out of the player an understanding of how to play their best. You asked him questions. He looked inside himself. He started to understand what the correlation between his issues were and his enjoyment was. And by doing that organic learning process is what sticks in the end. It is not what we do should not be, although it is sometimes with people that teach golf.
Yep.
Here's the thing you need to do.
Mhm.
This is why, because I said so. This is what,
Yeah.
And I'm hoping we're evolving in the right. This is why we have the show. We're trying to put this message out, right? A lot of instructors are very much like we are, right? I'm not saying we have all the answers either, by the way. But
No. And if I can interject,
we definitely don't, by the way.
Yeah, and if I can interject, is like I think that is the difference. And what we're doing is like you and I are acknowledging the fact that we are working with incomplete information. We're acknowledging the fact that
And it's okay.
it's okay. We're acknowledging the fact that there are a lot of options to this, right?
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of other instructors are operating under the fact that I am the gatekeeper of the right answer, right? And
Correct.
there is no incomplete, this is the way it is, right? No, I think that is like probably the distinction.
If you want to see how golf used to be taught, and I'm not doing this to pick on anybody or to criticize, but there's some historic moments in the golf kind of instruction world, and one of them is this famous moment where two golf instructors basically almost threw down with each other. They were arguing so much at a teaching seminar. People talk about it; they'll show it on the big screen at different things. And one of them's name was Jimmy Ballard, who's a great instructor. This is Rocco Mediate's instructor. He worked with Curtis Strange at the height. Like, this guy's great, right? But he's the epitome of, I've got the answers. Listen to what I have to say. Everything I say is right. And this was in the 80s and 90s, so it was a very different time, right? Sure. But if you can go on Instagram and find a Jimmy Ballard Instagram account. I've been following, I watch these videos. They're hysterical because it's just what it's just what you're saying.
Yeah,
it's like he'll say, you got to do this with your right hip because this does this and this does this. And you got to lift your arm. And you got to do this because you have to. You can't, And so I just watch it and I learn, I watch to learn because I bet he does have some good answers, right? Yeah. He taught Rocco and Curtis Strange and all these guys. So he knows things. But at the end of the day, it's a very different way of instructing than what we just laid out. Yeah. Right. And I think that what we're talking about is coaching. And I think there's a distinction there, right? You can go find some sensei that has, whatever, these are my answers and my rules. But at the end of the day, hopefully what we do is work with people with what they have, try to draw out of them, try to gain understanding. And all we try to do is gain understanding every day too. And I think that's what helps us as open-minded, growth-minded people to coach the game in a way that I feel satisfied with at the end of the day, right? And so I'm excited. I've seen a lot of growth out of the people that come to see me. I've been getting, and I'm not saying this to brag, but I'm saying this because I think with the golf intervention, you and I have discussed this, it almost forced us to come together and lay out in a way we could communicate better to a podcast world what it is we're trying to do. And in so doing, I've gotten better at what I'm trying to do.
100%.
And there's no question about it. And so I'm getting messages, like text messages or emails. Like, I got 2 emails today from people I taught that literally said, thank you so much for today. And I mean, I'm taught tens of thousands of lessons, right? Yeah. But it's pretty rare an hour later to get a message that says, hey, I just really think that was great. Yeah. And so got 2 of those today. Pretty fun. And I really do count this show for helping me not change how I teach, but communicate it better and think 100%. About it deeper and learn more. And so thank you for doing that with me, Rob Fales, because I think we're both learning and growing.
Totally. No, and I would
along in our career.
I would echo the same thing. Is like the enjoyment in the session for me personally, as well as my student, is one thing that I've seen be a lot different from when I was more like, I guess, authoritarian in my coaching. It was like, right, to now, because it's really just, I share with the student, first, what are the options, right? We have our overall strategy. We have our process for predicting and having an intention for a shot. We have skill and we have our swing, right? And in swing, I lump kind of like grip, posture, right, into that as well.
Yeah.
And so I tell them, I was like, hey, like, if we're going to go out and perform today, tomorrow, like, we're probably just going to stay up in those first two. Like, what is your overall strategy? And then can we develop a process for creating an intention and a prediction? Like, you're never going to get worse. You're only going to get better, right? And it's going to give you more margin for error, right? If we're here to learn and acquire something that we don't already have, it's probably going to be more like something skill development or swing related, right? I don't know currently what the best option for you is, but let's start somewhere, right? And let's let it play out a little bit and let's see where we get. And I think if you can just be honest with your client and just say, hey, look, this is what we're going to explore together. It's so much more fun because it's almost like this experimentation that we're both running, right? At the same time, it's like, okay, we're going to test this for a little bit. Let's see what happens. Give me your feedback. What did you notice there? Is that something that you think you could do on the golf course or when it matters, right? And so I just think a much more intrinsic way of going about it, really. It's a lot less anxiety, right? Because I used to be standing back there saying, oh gosh, I better get this right because I got one shot. I gotta say the one thing that's going to make this person. But now it's like, no, I can pretty much do what I want. Like, and I'm not going to be steadfast to say, okay, the first answer I'm going to come up with is the thing, right? It's going to be, no, like, we've got a ton of options here. Like, half the time I'm just making a guess. I'm like, all right, I got somebody in front of me. Do I think that with their current rhythm, if I just do differential training, if I think, is that going to get them what they need? I've been surprised before. I've been like, all right, I think they really need some grip, posture, kind of swing stuff, but we're going to go differential training here and see what happens. And then just like through the differential training, they get way back. I'm like, okay, all right, that was cool. That was surprising. And then sometimes it's the other way around. Sometimes I'll start with saying, okay, let's take what you're currently doing and do some skill stuff and see what we get. And it's just like beating our head against the wall. And it's like, all right, cool. That was, I wasn't expecting that to not get us anywhere, but that's okay. We'll pivot and we'll go into some grip, posture, swing stuff, or, we can even do some process stuff, right? I mean, there's a lot of options. So, I think just that awareness and understanding of like, we don't have the one answer, I think is a lot more fun way to coach. And the players, it's a lot more fun for the player because they're having the choice, right? We're giving them like, okay, now you give me the feedback. Tell me what you perceive there. It's not us telling, right?
I would say the one thing that cracks me up, though, and it happens several times a week to me, is the student that goes, tell me what I need to do.
I know, yeah.
Because, before we sort of go through any of the process, they'll be like, oh, I came over the top, or I hit that bad. Usually it's just bad contact. What do I need to change? What do I need to do? And I'll be like, well, let's hit a few more and then we'll figure it out. We'll kind of work through it. And so to slow that person down is a little tricky. Well, and Eric, I just need you to tell me. Well, we're going to get there. We're going to get there. And then we get there and it's like, oh, cool. Like, yeah. Things are going.
And that's really kind of our job, is to be able to take them from, they experience an outcome and they look right back at us, right? They're trying to, look at for outside
what
sources.
I do there.
Right. Exactly. And our job is to turn that around and be able to give them the tools to be able to say, all right, which skill was out of place, or did you just steer it right? Or did it, like, being able to start to diagnose this thing accurately, I think is most of our job, really.
So as we get into the topic for tonight's episode, which is how bad do you want it? I think it's fun. I kind of harken back to an assistant pro that we had that was from Knoxville, Tennessee. Like quintessential Knoxville, Tennessee, SEC football guy. Right. And when we talk about football, he said, I don't know if he wants it bad enough. I don't know if he wants it. Everything was about wanting it. I think in the SEC, it's all about how bad do you want it. Right. What do you really
It just means more.
It just means more.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, when you talk about your golf,
Sorry, I can't stand. I'm a Clemson grad. I can't stand the SEC, but it's all right.
I'm a Big Ten guy. Big Ten kind of dominated college football this year, but I digress. Don't get mad at me, people. It's just the facts. So, as we look at how bad do we want it, what does that really mean? Well, I think it's this. I think it's like there's some parallels, and this is kind of what got me thinking about it this week, this topic of an episode, is I think there's a lot of parallels in the development of golf game, development of a lot of things, but golf is tough.
Yeah.
Golf is hard. We don't know when it's going to improve. It's a little mystic at times with what we're doing. There's highs and lows, and there's cycles, and there's all this stuff, right? We can feel good, we can feel bad. Not everything like that, right? I don't think pickleball is like that. You play and have fun, but golf is such a tough sport. You learn so much about yourself. And I've always thought there's so many parallels between just like general health and wellness and golf. Like when people are trying to say, hey, I need to get healthier. I need to get in shape. I need to clean up my diet. So here I am. I'm a lot older than Rob is. And now I'm pushing into my late 40s. And I'm like, you know what? I got to focus on my health and wellness. Not that I'm like super unhealthy. I'm not on any medications. I'm not, I kind of got a little overweight the last few years, but not massively. Just a few extra pounds, like as we do in our 40s. And so I'm like, look, I need to figure out, because last year I played very little golf and didn't feel very good physically. And those two things probably went kind of hand in hand in a way.
For sure.
And so I decided I'm going to focus on my health for a while. So I've got to figure out how I'm going to make time for it, right? We have limited resources in our life, right? And the main resources that we struggle with are time, energy, and money are the things that we're sort of allocating out. And everybody has to calculate that out in some way, shape, or form. I know me as a 40-something-year-old with I'm a golf pro, so we know what that schedule's like. And I've got 4 kids at home, and I've got a little bit of land that I'm going to take care of here on this property. And I got 2 golden retriever dogs. I got stuff I got to deal with here, right? So trying to carve out time and energy to focus on me is A, it's a little bit outside my personality. And then B, it's going to be a challenge because I don't feel like I have a ton of time.
Yep.
Right. So I had to sit down and basically plan out, what am I going to give up in my life, which I don't do a ton of stuff anyway, to make sure I have the time and energy to do. And am I willing to do the thing I haven't done in recent years? And so I'm trying not to be motivated by anything. I'm trying to be disciplined. And I think this is kind of one of our points for today, is when you're trying to improve at something, motivation comes and goes. It's Masters week, which gets me thinking about this too. Everybody gets motivated to want to play golf and play better golf because the Masters is so inspiring. And that usually lasts a couple weeks and then it goes away. But if you can develop discipline on what it is that you're trying to do, I think you can lend you to improvement. So the first thing we're going to talk about here is that just allocation of your life. If you're willing to, or are you willing to carve out a bigger time in your life for golf, and how are you going to do that, right? So I think this is one of the big things. If I'm going to improve at golf, I've got to change what I'm doing. I've got to change a habit. Is that true, Rob?
Correct. Yeah.
Habit change is probably like the biggest thing. And growth mindset, again, laying the foundation for, so I gotta do something else, right? So when you have someone come into you and say, hey, I really want to improve at golf. I've been a 12 handicap for 32 straight years, and I want to be a 6 because I'm going to Scotland this summer, and I'm motivated, right? I watched the Masters, and then I decided I'm going to go to Scotland, and I'm going to play Carnoustie, and I want to be good at golf for that trip, and I want to play better. What do you as a coach How do you as a coach approach that
Yeah.
conversation?
Yeah, I would probably call timeout and just get curious about what that really means to them. All right. So like, okay, let's talk a little bit about that. Like, what would that mean to you? Right. So the biggest thing kind of where I'm leading here is that if your motivation is based off of getting somewhere, like this external, like, okay, I've got to get to a 6. Well, first off, like the quote unquote got to, right? Like you can see that we're imposing these, I'd say, requirements, right? So if we think about Dr. Pryor's A shaped versus V shaped beliefs, right? So A shaped would be at the top, very minimal space, which would be room for error. At the bottom would be widespread long term consequences, right? And then conversely, V shaped would be at the top, a lot of margin of error with very temporary specific external consequences. So when I hear, okay, I've got to get to a 6, the first question I was like, okay, well, I believe you can get there, but what if you didn't? Right? What if you didn't?
Right.
And I think it just starts to open up the conversation about like, why are we doing what we're doing? And I think the more we can start to value the things that we're getting from the process of getting there, say, okay, well, the things that you're going to need to do to get to a 6, well, how is that going to change your daily behaviors? What kind of things are you putting in place? What are you doing to make that possible? If we can get the value from the thing that we're doing while we're doing it, then if you don't get there, then it's like you're still coming out ahead, right? Because you actually enjoyed the process, you actually got something from it, and whether or not the outcome was what you wanted is inconsequential, right? It was always worth the effort. Whereas if it's like, no, I got to get to a 6 because my buddy's a 6, or my other, like, whatever they're going to think of me is going to depend on if I'm a 6 or not. Well, are you sure you want to make that sacrifice? Because you're going to get there. Let's say you get there, and it's like, okay, this is all like, this is all for this. Like, what's next, kind of thing. So it's like, for me, it's the more that you can talk about, okay, what are the benefits? What are the long-term outcomes that we want to develop, regardless of whether we get there or not? I think that's really kind of what we want to try to instill.
One of my favorite episodes that we did was called "Are Your Goals Killing Your Gains?"
Yeah.
And we talked a lot about this kind of discussion.
Yep.
And it was really fascinating to me to realize how demotivating or obstructive of your process it can be to put a timeline on a goal like that. Like, I want to be X by X time. It's very destructive, right?
Correct.
All of a sudden now your mental state of like, am I keeping up to your point that like, am I keeping up? There's no margin for error there.
No,
right?
You're either going to get there or you're
behind,
not.
I'm up.
Right.
Right. And am I going to be okay when I get there? And so what we have to delve into a little bit is A, where's the motivation coming from? And B, understanding that motivation is fleeting. So that C, I can focus on the process.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So you're basically coaching that person up to say, hey, I understand what you're saying. Let's talk about the process.
Yeah.
And then I would say that my biggest thing I have in that conversation right there at the same moment is I basically say, here's the process, right?
Yeah.
This is what the process looks like. And I think that's where golfers are very stuck. That's why our show, I think, is resonating with people, is because we talk about this process all the time. It's like, if I'm going to improve, what is it that I need to do? What is that process like?
Yeah.
And I think that I'm glad we started with a little bit of a discussion about how the off-season instruction has gone and what we're seeing recently, because when people come in and they say, hey, I want to play better, I'm ready to, what I'm actually saying is, let's take the timelines off of, right? Let's, we're taking the timelines off. We're going to build acceptance and that we're going to focus on what it is that we're focusing.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I've found in that process, which is really fun to communicate to people in their feedback, is this. And we talked about this a lot in the last few episodes, which is people always want to work on their swings, okay? Because they don't understand skill, okay?
Right.
And so,
Yep.
so you have golf shots. Everybody understands that part. I'm swinging, and then there's a shot. And basically what Robbie has said, and I just think it's a brilliant way to describe this, like, there's an in-between part to this. There's skill in between there. And that skill, what we've defined on here, in most of your full swing, especially in the full swing part, is essentially the skill is like, okay, can I make good contact with the ball? Right. Proper good contact for what my goals are, in some consistent way, which is going to have variability, but in line with our goals. 2, can I control the face and path relationship with emphasis on club face to control the ball flight, the way I need to? And then 3 is what's the speed or energy like of the swing that I'm producing. So, and then those things produce shots, and then you put the shots into the context of scoring, right? And you've got this process that you're seeing, right? So like somebody came in today and they were swinging, hooking. And they're like, what did I do? What did I do with my swing? Why was that swing worse than this swing? And I said, just let's sit here for a second. Okay. I said, told you I thought your swing was fine. And he was like, what do you mean? I said, but I'm hitting it all over the place. We're going to work on your skills.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what do you mean? So we go through just like we would. Well, the impact location's a little bit iffy. The face is very variable swing to swing. So we got to kind of think about that for a second. That's the big controller of the issues that you're seeing. But your swing itself is functioning pretty well. Balance and rhythm and speed is awesome. And we can hit the shots with the swing you have. Yeah. We just got to work on your skills. And he was like, it was like really freeing to him, right? So we spent 10 minutes working on it. And so this is the part that's been really fun for me, is when they hit a shot and we're working on skill, I got TrackMan running, right? I say, don't worry about the shot because we're not working. Right? Your skill here is we're trying to find some variability in the face that's acceptable for you. Right? It's going to make you happy. It's going to make you score better. And so when you hit a shot or you hit a pattern of shots, we're going to look at that. That's what we're going to judge ourselves off of right now. We're not going to judge ourselves off of the shots. What? Yeah. Okay. Or if I'm working on the swing mechanics, right? Commercially. Okay, I'm working on this one thing, whatever it is. It's temp, it's rhythm, it's whatever. Okay. Think of swing mechanics. Just name one. Doesn't matter. Okay. Well, we're not looking at the skills right now. Oh, I missed that one. Yeah, who cares? We're not focused on it, right? We're focused on the swing. I want you to judge yourself on how you did the swing, how you approached it, how you executed it, right? We're going to try and focus on that, right? And then it goes back through that process. Swing, skills, shots, scoring. So you're just, and I think that people all of a sudden are going like, oh, you just taught me how to practice.
Yep.
You just taught me how to focus when I'm practicing. You just taught me how to learn to play better golf because we had that. So when we tell people, hey, there's a process to getting better. Well, let's work on the process, right? Foundation is growth mindset. We work through these swing processes, like producing skills. It's really cool. And so the communication of that, this is some of the tightening of the communication I've been talking about with my students, which has been really fun. And so I get them really honed in on that. Now, ask yourself in the context of this podcast topic, ask yourself, listener, am I willing, how bad do I want it? Am I willing to let go of shot for a little bit to work on other things if I have to? Am I willing to do that? Because golfers are really, really hard on themselves when it comes to the shots.
For sure.
And so I find it's hard when you're working on skill or swing to get them to let go a little bit there and to get into the development phase.
100%. And like the biggest thing that I've noticed in terms of why that is that oftentimes we place priorities on things that aren't relevant. So number one is other people's perceptions of us. So again, let's go back through this. All right. So golfer walks in and says, okay, I want to get to a 6. It's like, okay, let's talk about that. Like, to get to a 6, right, we're going to probably need to learn to be more focused on the task at hand. We're going to need to be more present. We're going to need to be more accepting, right? And we're going to need to be smarter about how we're allocating our time and work harder to get better, not look better. So if we're like, okay, yeah, sign me up. Like, if I could develop those 4 values or those 4 core behaviors, then even if I don't get there, I know I'm going to be better off for it. I was like, okay, awesome. Let's go for it. Let's do it. At no point in that, right, to get from here to there, is it relevant that, oh, Johnny really liked that shot. He said that was a good shot. Like, at no point is that relevant. Right?
It's relevant to you.
What other people think, right, of what you're doing has no consequence on whether you develop those habits or not. Right? So I think that is oftentimes one of the biggest barriers to this, is that we prioritize how we're perceived. And I know I do. And I think it's evolutionary. Like, I think Dr. Pryor was talking about how there was a time in human history to where when we were tribal, right? If you weren't liked by the group, you get tossed out, right? You're out in the wilderness. You're dead, right? If people
You're
didn't
the
like
last
you,
one to eat or whatever.
correct,
Yeah.
right? So, but the problem is, like, as much as we've evolved now to where, like, okay, we're not actually like that, right? Someone, like, we could be not liked, and it's not going to necessarily be a life-threatening thing. Our brains haven't evolved at the speed that, like, society has evolved, right? So we have to literally teach our brains that this thing that we're prioritizing is not relevant, right? So usually these come in the form of judgments of, like, okay, this was good, this was bad, this was great, this was terrible. I try to get players to, like, spend some time not judging the shot at all. Just say, okay, the ball was here, now it is there. That is what happened. The ball hit the heel. It's not good or bad. It's just the ball hit the heel. Face was closed.
Data point.
Right? It's just exactly what just happened, because that is developing a sense of awareness that is a key skill, a key behavior, a key value to get us where we want. At no point, right, is judgment, is labeling going to help us get where we want. So I think I just wanted to make that point as well, is that I think that's a huge barrier for us if we can start to strip that.
Well, I also think people use that for motivation. And again, motivation is the wrong thing here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Right. So if I'm motivated by, hey, this happens a fair amount. Eric, this guy I play with all of a sudden is playing better than me, or he's hitting it further than me.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be honest, like, I'm a better athlete than him, or I'm in better shape than him, or I've always beat him at golf, and now I'm here. That's the motivation for taking the golf lesson or wanting to work on this one. That'll be so fleeting. It's crazy. Like, that'll just come and go.
Yeah.
Right? So when we talk about trying to, if we are motivated at times, like health and wellness, here's another thing. You go to the doctor and you realize, oh my gosh, I'm 20 pounds heavier than I thought I was, or my blood pressure is up, or, I'm pre-diabetic. Like, these are things that, again, they're like motivators. Like, I got to get in shape, or I got to, find wellness or work on my wellness. And again, if you use that as motivation, it's going to come and go. What you have to develop is discipline, right? You've got to develop a discipline. You've got to have, like you were saying, I've got to have acceptance with myself. I've got to have acceptance of outcomes. And then I've got to say, okay, in health and wellness, I'm not going to be okay with certain outcomes, right? Like, I can't develop type 2 diabetes. I can't have high cholesterol. Like, I am not going to be obese. I am not okay with those outcomes, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to be disciplined about how I approach this new thing. So for me, how I fit this into my life, now we're looking at how do I allocate? How do I plan my life? How bad do I want it, right? I've had to say, there's no chance in the world I'm ever going to exercise after work. Zero chance. Zero.
Yes.
Why? Because I'm exhausted. I stand on my feet and teach for 11 hours a day. Like, there's just no chance I'm going to come home and work out. I can't do it. Plus, I have dad duties, right? So what I've got to do, and husband duties, and home duties, like all these things come into play. So what I have to do, I know, is I've got to allocate time in the morning. I've got to, right? And so I've got to be disciplined to plan out my evenings so that I can plan out my mornings, right? And I've got to just kind of work on it. So that's what I've been doing. Been proud of myself. Been getting up earlier. Not crazy earlier, but just a little bit earlier. And I'm going through the motions of, some level of exercise every morning, stretching, weight training, a little bit of cardio, I like whatever. So it's going to take time for me to develop that discipline over long periods of time. But what I'm trying to be careful about is not having any motivation. I don't have motivational pictures up of like 6-pack abs or something. Like I'm not worried about it either. Right. So what I'm trying to do is just develop the discipline. And it's hard. It's very hard. It's hard to fit it into my life. I don't have tons of time. So as we look at golf improvement, we got to find those parallels. Like, how do I fit in improvement into my life? Right. We're busy. The time is limited. The resources are limited. And one of the big things that I would say is there is definitely addition by subtraction when it comes to some of this stuff. Okay. So one of the things I would say, and I wanted to cover this point, and I'm sorry, I'm going to cover this point again, is that when you talk about development of your game, then trying to quote unquote change your swing, learn a tip from YouTube, whatever, all over and over and over again. Guess what that does? It sets us back in time every time, pretty much. Okay? Right. Maybe not every time, but a lot of the times, right? So then we're trying something. We have no idea of its context. Is it going to help me? Is it going to hurt me? All I know is I keep muddling up my process, right? So what we want to do is say, in that process that Robbie and I just doled out, how do I know what I need to work on and what I need to do? What's not? That answer you're not going to find on the latest TikTok, whatever, 30-second tip video. It's likely not lying in there. What you need to do is say, I need to study this and understand, right? Yeah. I can find some understanding on my own, or I need to find a coach that can help me find my understanding. Right. And so when I say, how bad do you want it? Coaching can be investment, right?
For sure.
But I think that you have to, it's an investment in time. It's an investment in then follow-up practice. It's an investment in money. All of those resources are limited, right? So time, energy, money, all three of those if I'm taking lessons. But the point is, that person should set you into this process pretty quickly and say, hey, here's where we are. Here's your next step. Here's the big picture. And let's work on this one thing. And I'm going to give you some things to do in your time that's limited to work on it. A lot of what I do with students is I'm just asking them, how much time do we have? Like, this is in the beginning. What's your practice?
What are the constraints, right?
I don't know. Yeah, what are your constraints? Do you have an at-home setup? Do you, how's the body? There's a constraint as well. How bad do I want it, right? Am I willing to do something I've never done? Am I going to allocate time and resources in a way they're going to help me improve? And I think that is a step that it's just right there. It's right there.
Yeah.
And we all know we need to do it when it comes to wellness, and we know we need to do it when it comes to a lot of things. But it's like taking that step, getting outside of our comfort zone and saying, you know what? Like, I don't have a swing coach, but I'm going to try to find one.
Yeah.
Right. And I think that that's a huge deal, because just telling you to practice more, you can use some of the tips that we give you and have better fruitful practice.
Time is not a good predictor of quality of practice.
Or improvement in any way, shape, or form. It can actually set you back the other direction. But the point is, if you're going to find time, you can have someone helping, in my opinion. I mean, if John Rahm is on the range right now at Augusta with his coach, Dave Phillips, then you probably need a coach too.
Probably.
at least to help us in those moments. Those relationships are important to build and guide us on our way. So I'm a believer. I don't have to sell anybody on golf lessons. You know what I mean? Like, I don't do that. But I will say that, what I do say is that relationships are important, right?
Yep.
And if I can help someone understand the process and be their guide on the way, that's all I ever want. It's really fun for me to be on the ride with them, so to speak.
Yep.
So, that part of it is I think the trickiest part. Like what we just described is like, find the resources, allocate them, plan your life. How bad do you want it, right? And what you don't want to do, you got to sit down and prioritize a little bit. And I had to do this, right? I'm not going to sacrifice my time with my children or my wife. That's an thing. I can't necessarily work less. I could maybe be a little smarter about the hours and try to figure out how that all works. Maybe if I needed time in the morning to exercise, I could go in later a couple of days and just stay later, that kind of thing. But I just sit down and plan all this out, right? I just have to do it and put it in a schedule and say, this is. So when it comes to golf and you're coaching with people, Robbie, do you spend a lot of time in this moment, like trying to help people construct sort of the process of their improving?
For sure. Yeah. We start with kind of the end goal in mind. And by that, I mean, like, from a how you're doing this standpoint, right? A lot of times it's like, hey, like, golf is not fun for me right now. I want it to be more fun. Can you help me make it fun? So I want to come out and do it, kind of thing. It's like, I don't really care what your stats are if we're always off time and we are always off task. So I always tend to start with that because I'm a huge believer that we play our best when we're having fun, right? So I get people to understand that piece first, and then once you're able to check that box pretty consistently, and Dr. Pryor said, again, he hasn't had someone in a good while submit a scorecard that's been 100% on time and on task, right? I think 80% is great. If you can get up to 80-ish% of your round on time and on task, you're gonna be having a good time, and you're also gonna be aware of what's happening. Right. So if you're aware of what's happening, then we can say, okay, well, what could we do? What would be the most efficient allocation of time to get your score moving in the positive direction? And that's where we would start to look at stats of like, okay, what's the missing link here? Is it off the tee? Is it approach to green? Is it short game putting for the level of golfer that you're at to get to the next level? Where do we need to be? Right. And then to eventually get there, like we've said many times, it's going to be some combination of scoring strategy, shot process, skill, and swing. Right. So it's a matter of, typically, if you're on the earlier side of that learning curve, you're going to start with swing stuff first and kind of work your way up. If I'm working with a college player, I typically start at the top, right? And then swing is the very, very last thing that I would do with them. But it's always going to be a matter of looking at this thing objectively, getting them to assess using facts, non-judgment, right? And then starting to teach them what actual training looks like. It's not creating an environment that is the easiest for you to perform in, right? So a lot of people have the perception that, okay, if I perform well in practice, that means that I'm learning. That means I'm getting better. So they will organize their entire environment to make the performance as good as possible, which means taking away all the spacing, all the variability, having the lowest challenge point humanly possible, right? So getting them to understand, okay, well, we actually want to stretch our capacity. We want to get ourselves just to that, like 50-50 success failure rate, right? We don't want to stay at like 80-90% where it feels great. It's like going out and having ice cream, right? It tastes great. It's not the greatest for you, kind of thing, right? So there's a lot of that education too. And that's pretty much, I mean, I do a lot of concept like education. It's not a whole lot of like, okay, you're going to spend 5 minutes doing this and then 5 minutes doing that. And you're going to do this for 3 days a week. And you're going to I just don't think that, I don't think that's sustainable. Now, if it's organic to the individual, if I give them these concepts, and if then they come to me and be like, okay, this is what I'm going to do based off of my life, then I'm be like, okay, great. Now let's take that time and then let's start to organize that the way we want. But I teach them concepts like when you're going to come out to the range based off of what you're trying to do, where could you spend your time? Well, how could you do this? Right. That's typically how I like to, and whether it be right or wrong, that's kind of how I've typically done it.
Yeah, I think that me as a older, you're what, 30, turned 30 this year, right? So
30,
you're 30. I'm an elderly 40, in my late 40s. And so, with you have a 2-year-old, I've got 2 in college, right?
Yep.
So I think when I sort of have lived through this crazy, crazy life period, which you're going to get to, where it's like, you feel like you're in the weeds and you're just all over the place. And so I think that it's people will come to me and be like, hey, I got to figure this out. I got to figure out and one of the things that I've heard someone say, which I think is really great, is what can I do the least amount that's going to be the most effective?
Mm-hmm.
What can I do the least of that's going to be the most effective? And that's why I kind of go back to the process. Like when we're talking about what we're working on, if you go straight to swing change all the time, that is not the least amount.
Yep.
It's not. It's not the least amount. If you are constantly trying every swing tip you come across, that is not the least amount to be the most effective. It is not. It is actually the least efficient thing you could probably do and least effective thing you could probably do. So what we're saying is don't do that. You've got limited everything. Figure out a better way, right? One of the things that I realized a few years ago is that with a lot of things, like I used to think in my mind, like if I'm going to do something, like I play the guitar, right? Play the guitar. I love to read. I love to work out. I love golf. Like I got some things that I do, right? And what what I used to think in my mind all the time was I need an hour. Like it would be like I need an hour to figure that out, right? If I'm going to work out, I need an hour. If I'm going to practice, I need an hour. I don't know why. It's just, I think our mind is like, we're used to dividing everything up in hour blocks. I take a lesson, it's an hour. If I'm going to practice guitar, it's an hour. Well, none of that's true, right? If you do a really good, efficient workout, you could be done in 15 minutes and do a lot of stuff, right? Go stretch for 15 minutes and tell me it wasn't effective.
And we'll tell people that,
15 minutes.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is you can fit nooks and crannies a little bit. If you're kind of like a club member, that's helpful, right? If you're a country club member and you're around pickleball and tennis and the fitness center and the restaurants and the kids' activities, like you can find little nooks and crannies. I tell the dads, like, hey, when you're picking your kid up from junior clinic on Wednesday, just try to get there 15 minutes earlier, or have little Johnny come over and get him get him something to play with, and you can hit balls for another 10 minutes at the end, right?
Yeah.
Or when you're dropping your kids out for swim team, like go practice then. Or tell your wife, I'll take them to swim team. Then it's like you're doing a duty and you're practicing at the same time. Or I'm going to play pickleball, get there 15 minutes earlier and putt, practice your aim point. Like you can fit these little nooks and crannies in, and those add up. Just like it does in exercise, it adds up. Speaking of aim point, Rob Fields, a little bit of an aside here.
Yeah.
The 8-pointers are doing pretty well at the Masters, are they not?
They're doing okay.
I have a great story. I mean, it's interesting to me alone, maybe some of the listeners, is as the listener knows, if you've just tuned in for the first time, if it happens to be you, a couple of things we've alluded to. Dr. Raymond Pryor, we've interviewed him on the show. We did an episode kind of reflecting on that interview. Golf Beneath the Surface is his book. He's brilliant. If you're interested, I'll link it in the show notes. So that's kind of what we're referring to, the on time, on task. Those references are all Dr. Pryor, and he's just awesome. So those insights are great. And we've also done a lot on aim point. He's a great aim point instructor. I use it now, and I'm just really floored with how well it works. So I played the other day, and I texted Robin like I couldn't believe it. was doing a playing lesson, and I had a putt for par 7 feet. I didn't measure it, but it was like that distance. And I walked up, and I'm like, "This is a 4." No, 4 is like 4 is a steep. You know,
Yeah.
we don't have a lot of 4s.
Yeah. Yeah.
4% is that's a pretty big slope that you're putting across. So the guy I was playing with also did our clinic.
Yeah.
And he uses it too. Loves it, by the way.
Yeah,
Loves
that's
it.
awesome.
And really, what I've noticed is with a lot of these guys that I teach, they kind of like they learned it in the fall last year, if you
Yeah.
remember.
Yeah.
And in the winter, they haven't played much or used it. And they're not even doing it quite right. And they're still getting great results. Pretty darn good results, we'll put
Yeah.
it that way. So
Yeah.
we were refining it as we went. And I stood on it and I go, "Oh my gosh, that's a 4." And then I second guessed it for a second. And I'm like, "No, that's a 4." So that thing downhill, right to left, 7-footer was probably I was probably even 16 or 18 inches outside the hole. And I was like, because the greens were fast. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, just trust." And I hit
Yeah.
that putt and it went right in the middle. And he was like, "Well, are you serious?" Like, we went and looked at it and I was like, "There's no way in the world we'd have played that as 16
Yeah,
or 18
no
inches
way.
break. There's no way. No way ever." And so aim point, getting a bad rap, it slows everything down. And it absolutely does not slow
No,
anything down if
no.
you do it the right way. So if you're watching the Masters, Justin Rose, he's a big aim point guy. Had a decent score today. Ludwig Oberg, big aim point guy, had a great score today. Scotty Scheffler's caddy at least uses it and helps him read the green. So
Mhm.
I think that you're seeing Morikawa's playing great with. He's been a big defender of it recently, which is pretty cool to see.
Yeah.
So, those top players, they're aim point. They don't show
Yeah.
it. They don't show it on the screen.
Nope.
but
They don't always show it.
that's right. It's pretty cool to see. Have you followed some of the commentary, like the hateful commentary that's been going
No.
around about the aim point recently?
No, my head's in sand.
Yeah, it should be, because it just doesn't matter. In my
I don't
opinion.
hardly even get
Again,
on social media anymore, honestly.
Yeah, actually there was like Wall Street Journal article, which a lot of people sent me. I got like 4 emails one day and a couple texts like, "Did you see this Wall Street?" And the Wall Street Journal article actually was really fair
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
It was after that picture of the woman who was standing on like a 1-foot putt, and everybody was losing their mind over it. Like, give me a break, whatever. So, aim point green reading technique. If you're new to the show, green reading technique. Mark Sweeney was on the show, so you can go back. It's one of my favorite episodes.
Yep.
Very entertaining guy, super sharp. University of Virginia guy, which I hadn't realized. Did you?
Mhm.
I just
Yeah.
didn't know.
Yeah.
I guess I would have talked to him a little bit about
Big
Must have
time
good-
UVA ties.
and obviously.
Yeah.
Roby works at UVA, so
Yep.
the UVA course. So anyhow, how bad do you, anything else you add to when you see students, and you and I are not this way. We're not SEC football guys, so we don't like grab people and ask them how bad do they want it? Like, how bad do you?
How much does this mean to you?
How bad? How much does it mean to you? We don't really do that. But
No.
anything else you see that people are doing and you're just like, man, why do we keep doing that? If you just did this other thing,
Yeah.
it would be better.
No.
you know?
Yeah. No, I think we covered it.
But there's many.
Yeah.
There's many.
Yes. How much time we got?
So in this week of the Masters, which I've been on record, I'll tell everybody will tell you. And obviously today is the end of the first round we're recording, and Oberg played great, but that's by my pick. Since
Oh,
I
no way.
watched
He was
that
my pick, too.
Cyborg play last year. Oh, he's unbelievable. He's built for Augusta.
He's a
right?
machine.
Like, he's a
Yep.
machine. I don't think he's human. I think he's from some other planet. But such a great play. Gosh, he's a good player. And it's fun to watch him play. And he's built for Augusta. Like, just bombs it and hits a draw if he wants to. And uses that aim point to read the greens really well. So I think it's going to be a force to reckon with. So we're going to take the motivation from seeing the Masters. We're going to turn that into a disciplined approach to playing golf better. We're going to focus on process.
Yep.
We're not going to focus on results. We're going to get a coach if we need it. And we're going to allocate our time, energy, and all of our resources towards planning out a way to play better golf to the full enjoyment for 2025. Does that sound pretty good, Rob Fales?
You like playing?
All right. So that wraps up the less important part of the show. Now, the most important part of the show, Rob. We talked last time about Dynasty. You had so this is fantasy football talk. Just for the side, just indulge us, please.
Nope. There they
You had
go.
a Dynasty
they're
League
clicking
draft.
out. Goodbye. Goodbye, folks.
Superflex startup. Which means that the quarterback position is pretty much the most important.
Yeah.
You had the number one pick.
Mm-hmm.
You were going to pick the Redskins quarterback. Did you go ahead
I did.
and take our guy?
I got Jaden.
You had to take him.
Had to.
It's hard not to take him.
He's
hard not to take him.
24.
Where did my guy, Ashton Genty, go in that draft?
Yeah, so this was a cool draft because we actually picked kickers as placeholders for our rookie picks, which is going to be after the draft is when we'll do the actual supplemental rookie draft. But Ashton Genty went 2.8 in a startup.
Way too late. Way too late.
He went
Just write this down.
He went just after Jahmyr Gibbs. So he went after Bijan and Gibbs. I would have put him RB3 right now, right behind Gibbs. I don't know. Gibbs, I might have Gibbs.
Saquon's still RB1 in this story for now.
No,
in my opinion.
not in a dynasty.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes, in a dynasty.
not
Just
in a
trust me.
dynasty.
Been doing dynasty for many years. Saquon is going to be great for at least 3 more years. Just trust me. When I did our dynasty
Have
story,
you seen what's happened to
I took
running
a
backs
couple of
after-
players and everybody thought was washed. I took LaShawn McCoy in like the 6th round,
Okay.
and I took Larry Fitzgerald in like the 8th round. They're old, they're this, that, and the other. And they produced for like 4 straight years, and they were awesome. And Saquon has no slowing down ahead of him. The Eagles have an absolutely outrageous offense that he's going to produce in year over year over year. He's going to be at least 3 years great. And he is absolutely the number one fantasy dynasty startup, in my opinion, for a running back. But
I don't think. Yeah,
Jahmyr Gibbs, are you kidding me? Jahmyr Gibbs, I mean, he's fine. He's whatever. He's 200 pounds. Like, whatever. Give me a break. He's with Alabama. Those guys always
he might be the RB1 in dynasty. I mean, when you look at Bijan and Gibbs, I have Bijan, Gibbs, Genty maybe in the same tier, and then next tier down would be Saquon, and then
Oh gosh, you got so much to learn. Grasshopper, you got a lot to learn.
But there's a big
Now,
tier
if you
break
said,
after that.
Oh yeah, Derrick Henry should go in the 10th. Yeah, well that makes sense. Derrick Henry might have one. He might have 0 good years left, right?
Yeah.
He had a great year last year. We don't know.
No, I don't disagree with you.
is not
Saquon
anywhere
did just
close
get
to the end
paid.
of his.
Yeah.
He is nowhere close to the end of this career. If you're going to just revisit this in 3 years, and we'll see
Okay.
who's done better, Jahmyr Gibbs or Saquon. We'll see how that.
Oh, I will absolutely.
And Bijan's in a terrible offense. So he had a good year, but can you trust the Falcons year after year? I'm not sure you can. So we'll see.
I don't know. That sounds like a
bet.
bet. I'll take Jahmyr 3-year total points. I'll take Gibbs. You take Barkley. Let's do it. Let's write it down.
Darn. DUN. And thus ends our fantasy football mid.
We're gonna come out with a fantasy.
I hope you have
podcast.
all enjoyed the Golf Intervention podcast.
Yeah.
There may be a fantasy football spinoff, but I think my wife's going to shut that idea down. You don't have time for that.
Yeah.
We'll see as fantasy football season approaches. But
No,
thank
this
you
is good.
for tuning in.
We should make that the last 10 minutes of every podcast should be about fantasy football. I motion
We'll
to make that a tradition.
I think it's fun for the listener to be understanding that we are humans who have other interests other than golf. It is pretty cool. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the Golf Intervention Podcast. You can always send us questions. We have a Gmail, or we have a website, or we have a Substack, and any one of those, you can reach out to us or our Instagram and send us a question. We'll try to address it on the show. We love question and answer episodes, so maybe the next one we'll do one of those. Outside of that, I have nothing left to say. Hope you all are motivated and therefore going to be disciplined to improve your game in 2025. Have a great night, everybody.